Tenemos el gusto de recibir a la profesora Sara Parvis, Senior Lecturer en Patología de la Escuela de Teología de la Universidad de Edimburgo, en Escocia. Estimada profesora Parvis, ¿cuál es su principal temática de investigación?
Well, when I started off, I was working on a character called Marcellus of Ankara. So I'd initially wanted to look at Ankara in modern Turkey itself. There were various interesting questions that arose in the 1st, 2nd, 4th and 5th centuries that I wanted to investigate, like the North-South Galatian hypothesis in biblical studies, like the problem of Montanism in the 2nd century, and Marcellus and those who followed him, particularly Basil of Ankara in the 4th century. But I became so interested in Marcellus, I ended up simply studying him and writing my book.
¿Y en qué van sus investigaciones actuales a 14 años de la publicación de su tesis Marcelo de Ancira y los años ocultados de la controversia arriana 325-345?
Yes, so I became interested in the later part of the Arian controversy, the debates over Nicaea, and I'm just finishing a book on the Second Ecumenical Council, the Council of Constantinople of 381.
Usted vino a asesorar a los profesores Xavier Morales y Samuel Fernández de nuestra facultad, que desarrollan investigaciones en el mismo campo que usted. Cuando se le preguntó si podía dar una conferencia pública, usted propuso un tema que nos pareció muy relevante en el contexto que vive Chile hoy en día. ¿Nos puede decir algo al respecto?
Well, we had talked about doing something on Constantine, something about 4th century theology, but you said that there was quite a lot of interest in Chile in women and in feminism, and that's something I'm also thinking about. So what I proposed to do was a lecture on Christine de Pizan, the 14th to 15th century French writer, who throws a very interesting light on feminism. In a way, I come to this from the 4th century, from a text like Jerome's De Viris Illustribus on famous men. Now, a lot of people don't realize that Jerome was entirely bankrolled when he wrote this by women, and his entire context was writing for and alongside women, and yet he chose to write this work which simply valorized men and wrote women out of the picture. Now, all the way forward to the early 15th century, this is what Christine de Pizan faces. She draws on Boccaccio's response, if you like, to Jerome in the 14th century in Italian, his De Claris Mulieribus, and she turns this into a popular text which engages with vernacular French of her day. Now, what interested me was to talk about the question of whether she could be considered a feminist, because I'm a historian and I'm often bothered by the fact that feminists don't really want to go back past the 19th century. They're happy with people arguing for women's rights, like Mary Wollstonecraft's vindication of the rights of women, but they get nervous as soon as the discourse turns to virtue, turns to virtuous women, and turns to things like education, because they feel that these categories are controlled by patriarchy, by men. So I wanted to start a conversation about a woman as far back as the 15th century who in many ways had very different ways of talking about women and what it would look like to liberate women, but who yet is the first person to have systematically analyzed misogyny.
Pero Sara, una cosa que me hace ruido es que Christine de Pizan al final de su vida ingresa en un monasterio. Ahora, para una mujer, ingresar en un monasterio, en una estructura de encarcelamiento, ¿realmente es una postura feminista?
That's a very interesting question, and in fact it raises all the problems of what it might mean to call somebody in the 15th century a feminist. Because of course Christine's book of the City of Ladies has the Madonna, has Mary as its queen, Maria Immaculata, because for her that's where the goodness of women begin. It's a very, very different vision from modern feminism. But yet this monastery, particularly interesting monastery, the Royal Monastery of Poissy, It was mainly for the royal women of the French court, but you could belong to it if you were a scholar, if you brought books as your dowry. And first of all, her daughter joined, and Christine must have given books as her daughter's dowry because they had no money. And then she herself joined it as well. It was a period of great danger. It was a period of great political unrest. It was the 100 Years' War, and in many ways it ended up being the safest place for a woman of her day. The last thing Christine de Pizan wrote was a eulogy of Jeanne d'Arc, the great French female warrior. And of course, just after Christine died, Jeanne was burned at the stake by the English. It was a dangerous place for women, but Christine was not afraid of danger, and that's the vision that she gives us, I think, to take on as historians.
Muchas gracias, Sara, por esta entrevista que nos concedió a pesar de no poder dar la conferencia a causa de las medidas de resguardo contra la difusión del coronavirus. Le deseamos un buen viaje de vuelta a Edimburgo.
Gracias.